I'm Caitlin E, and welcome to the Lit Review. Today we're doing my mid-month wrap-up for May. How did it get to be May? So these are the books that I have read from the 1st of May to May 15th. I'll also give you some status updates on what I'm in the middle of and hope to finish by the end of the month. I only have a couple of books to share with you for now, so let's get into it. As with any of my wrap-ups, there are going to be timestamps down below if you'd like to skip to a specific book, and with those timestamps will be any trigger warnings if I found them necessary. So the first thing I finished in May was Joanna Lindsey's The Heir. This was a punishment pick, honestly, which is shocking to me because I actually enjoyed it. So the original prompt was to read a book from an author whose previous work you didn't enjoy. And I have been really hot and cold with Miss Lindsey, and I would say I'm like lukewarm on this. I'm not mad at it. This was a 3.5 star rating for me. I think what took it down from even like a 4 was some of like the miscommunication tropiness in here, but I actually really enjoyed the writing in this, and there was a moderate amount of spice or steam depending on which way you like your heat. I would call this like a 3-pepper novel using my own spice scale. I would say the spiciness was present, and there were a couple of good scenes in here that were spicy indeed, but they were not the majority of the novel. So if you're just looking for a fun historical romance read that's more about character development and building of relationships with a couple of doses of spice, this is going to be a really good fit for you. And I believe this is a duology. So this is the first in the duology, and then there's another one that features a character that we meet in here, and I think I own that one as well. I'm actually kind of intrigued to read about her because she was a real pain in the butt. So our main character, Sabrina, is plain, but has really beautiful eyes and a stunner of a personality. She really delights in making people laugh and easing tensions, and she's kind of figured that she doesn't actually want to marry. She's out in the London season, but her family has like a little bit of a scandal behind it, and she's like, I don't need to be married. But in comes Duncan McTavish, who is the soon-to-be heir of a huge estate, and so his grandfathers really want to see him married and settled. But he meets Sabrina along the way, and at first it's really just friends, and they really are a friends to lovers trope, and it's very charming because Duncan feels like Sabrina is the only one that treats him like a human being, and Sabrina just enjoys Duncan because there's no pressure there. But then they start to realize that their connection is a little bit more in-depth than just friendship, and it's very sweet. I really loved the multiple perspectives in here. You get to see some of the grandfathers, some of Sabrina's aunts, you get to see Duncan's perspective. I think you even get some of Ophelia's perspective here and there. It's really like well written. So I enjoyed this quite a bit. This is probably one of my favorite Joanna Lindsey books that I've read in the last year or so. I'm not committed to like reading all of her stuff because I am so hot and cold with her, but I like this one. I'm going to keep it, and I actually want to read the other part of this duology. Also, this is my used historical copy. You can see this here, but check that step back. Very cool, very cool. So then the other book I finished this month is my rollover book, the one I didn't finish in April, but by God, I finished it in May. The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. And this is a YA novel that takes place in New Orleans. This is the book that was getting a lot of hype for being like the return of vampires in YA. And the vampires are present, but it's more about like the eerie buildup to that reveal, which I don't think is a spoiler because this thing was hyped up as being vampires, you know, like it's not a spoiler to say that they do show up. Maybe just not as much as some people would want. But this is the first in a series, and it sets you up on a pretty intense, I wouldn't say cliffhanger, like you know what happens. This book has a really good natural ending. I'm just excited to see what happens in book 2. And again, I gave this one 3.5 stars. I have really enjoyed Renee Ahdieh's writing in the past, and I still enjoyed it here. This one just to me wasn't as good as The Wrath and the Dawn, and I think that's the one that I always am going to compare hers to because that was my first of hers that I've ever read, and I really, really loved it. This one is still good. I think it's a little slow in the beginning, But what I will say is I love that Renee Ahdieh writes complicated female characters. And I'm using complicated, not complex, because I like that she creates flawed humans. I think that's really nice to see. She's secretive and prickly and has a bit of a secret that she's convinced is going to cause other people to hate her, so she tends to push people away. And it's really good. I want to know more, however, about the secret society aspects. I'm hoping that comes in book 2, because it's all still kind of vaguely mysterious by the end of this, and I just want to know more. I know there's going to be at least 3 books. The second one is already out, and that's The Damned. And then I saw on Goodreads that there's going to be a third that's focusing on a character we meet here. And I'm intrigued to see how that goes. One of her best friends, I think, is the main character in book 3. So we'll see. But I would like to read The Damned, and I probably would like to read about Pippa in book 3. So we'll see how this ends up. I will be keeping this as well. So those are the 2 books I've officially read, but I'm smack dab in the middle of several. So let me just give you a little bit of a progress report. So I am participating in 2 different readathons right now. I am participating in Desert-a-thon, hosted by Bookish Buddies. I'm also participating in the Asian readathon, hosted by With Cindy, formerly Read with Cindy, but she's doing a lot more now these days, which is freaking awesome. But I am kind of trying to casually read along with both of those. I'm not treating them super intensely, but that's important context for the 3 books that I am trying to read right now. The one book I'm kind of in the middle of that has nothing to do with those 2 readathons is for Litland, and that's Sex, Murder, and a Double Latte by Kira Davis. I don't have it in the room with me, but it is also an illustrated cover, so it counts for my book club, the Book Covered Book Club, which the theme for May is illustrated cover. So I'm kind of struggling with it. This is the 2 cozy mysteries that I have read. I have not thoroughly enjoyed the way that the female characters talk about themselves or other women. So this is two books don't speak for the whole genre. I know that, but I'm not totally on board with the way the main character Sophie talks about herself or others in the book. So I'm struggling with it. It's taking me longer than I think it warrants, because it's actually a fast-paced little book. I'm just not wanting to pick it up very much. But I do think I'm going to finish it, if nothing else because it's a library book and I just want to finish it and get it back to the library. But it's kind of slowing me down right now. The 2 others that I'm in the middle of, there's one that's also kind of slowing me down for reasons. The first is Aleph the Unseen by G. Willow Wilson, and I started picking that up for Desert-a-thon because it is set in a desert city. It also works for the Asian readathon because while the specific nation is not identified, it is set in the Middle East, which could work for multiple identities within the Asian readathon, so I'm kind of just rolling with it. A lovelorn hacker who discovers a text for a djinn, and so the old world melds with new tech in this kind of modern hacker story. Why I'm struggling with it, because I think the premise is fantastic. Why I'm struggling with it is at one point, this main character who we only know as Aleph, that's his alias, we don't actually know his name presently. So he's in love with this woman who is from a wealthy family, and they can't really be together. She's going to get engaged to somebody, but they've been romantically involved. And when she tells him that they can't see each other anymore, he reacts with such intense anger, and he kind of hits near her. He doesn't hit her, but he hits near her. And for me, I was like, you know what? You can be as emotional as you want to be, sir, but I am maybe not okay with being in somebody's head who's going to be that aggressive. That is, to me, who has been in a similar scenario, it is upsetting. It is a little re-triggering. So I have not decided whether or not I'm going to continue on with that book. I would like to think that the book could get better. I am also not of the opinion that I need to identify 100% with the characters I'm reading. There's potentially some value there. I don't think he's set up to be a super likable person based off what little we know about him. but I'm still intrigued by the book, so I might give it a go. We'll see. We'll see what happens by the end of the month. Then the other one that is slow going, but it's more because I'm trying to emotionally pace myself, and I did pick this up as one of the challenges for Asian Readathon, because it is one of the challenges is to like read a nonfiction. So what I decided to pick up, because I've heard wonderful things from those who have read it, is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. And Chanel Miller is unfortunately the name associated with Brock Turner and her assault and the ordeal she went through, both in the assault itself, but then the trial, and coming into her own and wanting her name seen as opposed to just Emily Doe. So far I'm really captivated by her as a writer. She is a beautiful writer, and I hope one day she feels comfortable writing about something that isn't this experience, because her writing is lovely, is truly just beautiful writing. The way she describes things, the way she puts emotions into metaphor is striking. So I hope genuinely that Chanel Miller continues to write. I'm looking forward to the rest of this book, but I kind of need to get a move on because it's also out from the library. But it's one of those things that I don't necessarily want to read in one sitting, so I need to pace myself with that book a little bit, but I think I'm really going to like it. That is probably my favorite of the three things I am currently reading, and only one of those three was on my Litland TBR, so I also need to reconcile how that's going to work out for me. At the end of the month, I'll be filming my full wrap-up, but that won't go up realistically until probably the first or second week of June, depending on days for filming. So keep an eye out for that in the future. If you've read any of these books, let me know down in the comments below what you thought of them. But I hope your reading for May is going well. Thank you for spending time with me. I hope you have a fantastic reading day. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more from me or this channel, and I'll see you in the next one.